Greek city of Olbia. So it was a Greek colony established by
in
settlers.
Ukraine.
Yep, settlers of Miletus in the 6th century BC. And you can see where it's located right on a bunch of rivers right there within what is now Ukraine. And you can see where Crimea is and all the different cities like Pantikapan and all the other cities around the Black Sea that were issuing coins at the time. But the harbor was one of the main emporias on the Black Sea for the export of cereals, fish, slaves to Greece, and for the import of Attic goods to Scythia. And the temples that were there were Zeus, Athena, Apollo, and a few others. And so you'll see some of that in the coinage later on. If you go to the next slide, they started out with what was called proto-money. And so these were actually not arrowheads, but these were actually used as money, and they were sometimes votive offerings, and then they later became currency. So around the 6th century. And then around the same time period, they got into other castes as well. But, where did all this, I was wondering, like, where does all this copper come from, or where does all the gold come from, or the silver? And so if you want to go to the next slide, I kind of like did a little map here to show. So they were doing a lot of trading with Scythia, which was just above them there. And then stuff came out of Anatolia, Bulgaria. And so there was copper coming to them for export. And then they were actually also recycling some of the older pieces as well and melting them down. And around the same time they were doing the arrowheads, they started to get into the dolphin coinage. And I think it originally probably started to as tokens at the different sanctuaries to the gods. And if you want to go to the next slide. So the dolphins were probably cast like this, something like this, not exactly, where it was like a tree, and then they would like make a cast and they would break them off or cut them off.
That makes a whole lot more sense now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So a lot of these, and it may not have looked exactly like this. I mean, I asked AI to kind of draw something that would describe it, and that's what they came up with. But I don't know if they've ever actually found anything, but that's kind of the idea of how it would have been created. But it was around the same, just after the arrowhead stuff has started to be created. And the idea is that the form of money is said to be originated from sacrificial tokens used at the temple of Apollo Delphinus, which has to do with dolphins, Apollo as a dolphin, essentially. And then the reverses started to actually have Greek letters on them, and you can see some of the abbreviations of what they meant, whether it was the city's name referring to the actual Apollo the god, the magistrate's name, personal name, or maybe just a magistrate's signature of his name. And so you get all these different types of, and sometimes it's even the valuation of the denomination on the coins. Now these dolphin coins are very, very common, as we saw earlier in the show, where you can buy these in quantity. They don't, I think, the one in the far bottom right where you have the group, that's kind of what they look like in mass quantity. But you want one that actually has full form with a nice eye, not broken off at the tip or at the tail, has its fin, or to get the ones that have the signatures on the reverse. I think is really, really, really cool. And so, these are the kinds of coins that you can get anytime. I love when we put these into our pick bowls and kids get them because they love, hey, that's a dolphin. Every kid loves a dolphin. So they're very exciting as far as that goes. And I love them for lots of different reasons. If you go to the next slide.
Well, it's hard not to.
This is a huge one, and that's the actual on the and on the reverse
4 millimeters.
It's a massive coin. So this would have been more of a treasury type coin, moving mass amounts of value around. So this was, they weren't using gold and silver. So they were using copper, bronze. And so here you have the denomination designated on the reverse of this massive piece. This to me is more like an antiquity than a coin. It's so big. But yeah, you got it right, Mike. It's 95 grams. It's a big sucker, 104 millimeters long. Right. So, massive piece. And these come up for auction occasionally. And, they usually go for, anywhere between 7 and 12,000 and up, depending on how nice they are. So they're expensive, but they're not like $50,000 is my point. you know. So
Sure.
and I think they're very, very cool. And if you collect anything from this region, to actually own something like that would be pretty exciting, I think. And you know, with the dolphins, you know, you can get all different kinds, right? Because you can get the different names, and they're not, most of the dolphins, you know, might, like the crude ones might end up costing you like $20, $30, and then they go up to $100 depending on how really great they are. If you get one with a signature, they could still only be 75, or they could be 200 or 300. But again, they're relatively inexpensive for what they are. So
Well,
it's a fun area to collect as well.
this particular dolphin that's on the screen right now weighs nearly a kilo.
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
a big, heavy coin.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't even feel like a coin anymore. It feels more like an antiquity. I mean, I would get a mount made. I would get a mount made for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be putting that in a drawer. I would be putting it
No.
outside of a cabinet.
Right, exactly. So if we go to the next slide, they start to now move away from the dolphins. They were, you know, they may have still been issuing them in quantity, but they start to get into other cast. Again, they're still not striking coins. They're still doing cast bronzes. So the casting still has gone here. And so some of these can be some of the ones with the Gorgon and the eagle on the reverse have been coming up more regularly. They were pretty uncommon, but I've seen quite a few of them come onto the market in the last 5 years. And they used to sell for quite a bit of money. I think now they're selling for under $2,000 in some cases, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how much detail. Some of these are quite rare, like the wheel one is much scarcer. Don't get that one as often, but you can even see like the one in the bottom left. You can see how that would have been produced and then cut off of probably like a tree or whatever it was connected to when they were doing the casting process. It just didn't get its tang or whatever shaved off.
And you can even see some of where it leached out of the mold on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you look, you see the eagle and the dolphin. It's very similar to the coins of Istris, which is right around the corner from where Olbia is. So some of these cities did copy each other. If you know the coins of Istris, you'll know what I'm talking about, where they had that exact same design on the reverse of a silver coin of a dram. So it's interesting to see how the cities actually will somewhat copy each other or take the same motifs because they were trading with each other. And so, I mean, maybe the Olbia had the idea first, who knows? Maybe Istris had the idea first. It's hard to say. So again, these are also large coins. You can see 70 millimeters, 66 millimeters, 65 millimeters. I mean, they're not, these are big cast bronzes.
Covers.
Yeah, they're big. Finally, if you go to the next slide, we start to get into struck coins. And so the more common one is the bronze one at the bottom left, but any silver or the gold here, very rare, hardly ever come up. Big money, tough to get. So the bronze coin a little bit easier to acquire. Still a $300 to $500 coin, somewhere in that range. Obviously cheaper or more expensive depending on how nice it is. But those silver and the gold are extremely rare, and they don't come up that often. And so for that reason, they garner a lot of money. But I think when it comes to Olbia, it's really about the cast bronzes, and they really stuck with that all through the Greek period and didn't really go away from it too much. It's an interesting city, and I'm sure there's others out there. You know, I'm not going to hit every coin ever produced when I'm doing one of these things, but
Thank
you get a good feel for really what the city was trying to do at the time.